I was really pleased that Sasha agreed to do this session because Sasha and I were presenting at the Building Business Capability Conference earlier this year, and I wasn't able to make Sasha's session. So immediately after, I caught up with her and said, rather selfishly, I really want to see your session. So could we do it as a webinar? And then also, it seems like it's a really popular topic because over 200 people have registered to be here and watch it as well, so which is always good. So before we get started, just a little bit about Sasha. So Sasha brings innovative ideas to the intersection of new forms of business processes, business design, and cultural transformation, topics I'm sure we're all very enthusiastic about. Her forward-thinking, pragmatic approach to today's challenges is based on over 2 decades as a leader of business process modernization. She writes thought-provoking articles for publications like BP Trends, which is well worth checking out. BP Trends and the Huffington Post. But I'm going to hand straight over to Sasha now. So with a presentation entitled The Core Concepts of Performance Improvement, Sasha, over to you.
So let me start with this. So the core concepts, and I added the tools of performance improvement. It's a big and a large subject. And there are a lot of tools that exist, but I'm really going to only scratch the surface or hopefully just get your interest in going in this space, wherever, if you are in just foundation and just basic, or if you're a little bit more advanced. We're going to go up and down a little bit, so hopefully it's going to be relevant for all of you. But let me start here. So if I ask you a question, how are you? Like literally just stop and think for a little bit, just for a few minutes. How are you? And how would you answer that question to, a good friend of yours? And if you are kind of probably like me, when you truly want to answer, other than very Canadian polite way to say, good, how are you? You actually start thinking, assessing, well, how's my health? How's my mind, emotional state? How's my family, and so on, right? So now if you would think about the question, how's your business that you work for, you work with? Is it easier for you to answer that question? Do you know what aspects of the business you would consider assessing? Do you know what are those strategic measurements that you might want to assess itself by and say, yeah, the business is doing well or not so well? What is green? What is red? What is, somewhat getting better or not? And what is the approach towards improving? So this is exactly what this talk is about. It's just really to start talking about the key things that you would know what it is, how it is, and how would you measure that. Okay. So I wanted to let you know that I've been in this business, as Adrian said, for more than 20 years. I've done more than 100 projects myself in our practice. So what I'm going to teach you and tell you about, this is actually checked practices in the organizations that we worked with around the world, small and big, profit, non-profit, manufacturing and financial, you name it. So it is truly, truly things that I've tried, we've tried as a practice, learned from, applied the lessons learned over and over again. Okay. So I'm going to take you through 4 key things in here. Right now, I'm going to start from what is performance. Then I'm going to take you through why is it important to improve performance. And some of them, hopefully, maybe it's super clear for you. For me, I had to think about it a little bit more. And then in majority, I'm going to concentrate on the 3rd bullet point here. So the top 5 tools, techniques you need for effective performance improvement. And the last one, what do you, when you come back to the office, so what do you do when you go back? So basically some calls to action after that. So what is performance? And I want to bring this 2 specific definitions to your attention. One, when you think about performance, as Oxford Language actually defines it, it says performance is the action or process of carrying out or accomplishing an action, task, or function. Right? So the performing something. So if you think it more graphically, if I would put it together, you'd say, well, there's a work structure or definition or procedure or something, and you give it to an individual, a people, a machine as well, right? So, and you put them together, it results in action. And that action, or AKA process or step or anything else, what does it do? It really transforms your inputs into the outputs. I'm bringing a little bit of a process language in here, right? So we're transforming inputs into the outputs. And based on that first definition, this is a performance. However, what I would like to concentrate on is more of what we in the business mean of a performance. And that is actually a definition that comes from ISO 9000. So the definition here is that business performance is a term that describes how well an organization is doing, right? Or even more details, so business performance refers to the measurable results that activities, processes, products, services, systems, and organizations are able to achieve. I like that definition very much. And that's what we're going to talk about. Hence, I put, if you can see on the right-hand side, right after the outputs, it's a measurement, it's a scale. So how are we doing? It's a measurement of that output. And that's going to be important for us, an important distinction for us to know as I go along. Now, it is, you know, we are so often almost fatigued from change. And we always say, oh, let's improve, let's continue pushing and so on. And after, you know, being overwhelmed and stuff like that, however, after a good night's sleep sometimes, or a break, or on every Monday, we do understand that we have to change. So the truth is, with such a fast-paced environment, if you're not moving forward, you are moving backward. And no matter if you are supporting leadership team and setting up a strategy and ensure that your products and services are forward-thinking and relevant, or if you're really supporting a middle management with ensuring that the processes are as efficient as possible, or you must continuously work on the improvements. So all of this really needs continuously moving forward, continuously improving. And that includes a lot of things. It's analyzing the data. It's identifying areas of improvement, developing an approach to address those areas, implementing the approach. It is measuring the results and making adjustments as needed. So it's a lot of things that need to happen in order for you to really improve the performance. So as a business person, it is very important to understand that the market and business landscape are constantly evolving, right? So this means that if you're not actively seeking ways to improve and innovate, you're likely falling behind your competition. So it constantly needs to change. Okay. So with that, I do want to explain a little bit that every single organization and businesses are complex. And if we are going after this middle that you see here, there are a lot of components that influence that business performance. So all of the components in front of you that you see right now, you must align them and make sure you understand them, you know them, they're explicit, and that they are all aligned. So let's go around this hexagon. So starting with the strategy that is on top of the hexagon, that will set our business model, right? So, and we know that COVID was a continuous disruptor to this from the very beginning, and still stays a disruptor. So who are our stakeholders? What are our business objectives? What are the policies and regulations that we have to comply with in order to stay in business? What is the order? What is like our organizational, if you go through the organizational structure? What considerations we need to take in terms of locations and facilities and equipment. All of this also was drastically, especially location, of course, drastically disrupted through COVID as well. What technology is supporting on our operations, available people, capacity, competency, motivation, all those things around the hexagon is going to impact our business performance, our bullseye in here. So a lot of moving parts, interconnected parts, and they're all tied together by the circle that says business process. And in fact, there is honestly, and I know I love process. This is, I've been working with processes for many, many years, and I have not seen any other domains like business process that really connects, analyze, and as a backbone touches all of the other domains. So it will be, I will show you a little bit later that the process model is truly, as I'm saying, the backbone where all of those components do touch. That's why I'm going to take you into some of the tools of the analysis when we get to the business performance and improvements. So And another thing, a circle that you see there between the business process and the performance is culture. So no matter how well you design your processes, you design your business and you think there and you think it through, and everything might make sense, it's all about, do you have a supporting behaviors in order for you to achieve the desired result? There is a way of, a structured way of how to work with culture and how to ensure a supportive structure to achieve your objectives. But it's a conversation and topic by itself for the whole other webinar. So as I go through this discussion today, I wanted kind of to illustrate it for you on an example. And what I'm going to share with you, it is actually based on the truly real organization, but I had to abstract and generalize some of the terms. My point was here to show it to you to the level of detail that we would be defining every single stage as we go through. So imagine an organization, it's just a consumer goods organization. And I'm showing it to you based on the the canvas, so that you know, you can again get a feel of, imagine the organization that their key value proposition is the latest products to the market, fast delivery, brand status, and value-added services that they provide to their customers. You see on the right-hand side who are their customers. Again, I'm just painting a picture. Imagine this business. They have a private customers and they have a wholesalers. Then on the left-hand side, who are our key partners? Who are our key stakeholders? Because when we look at the organization from outside in perspective, who are we here to, whose needs and expectations are we here to fulfill? Customers, suppliers, regulators, union, and a community. So this is the ones that we really within the context for our business. Usually the other stuff is usual. So the channels, traditional retail, some digital, and a social influencer marketing. That's what this company is. Okay, so I'm going to stay there. Just again, imagine this usual typical organization in here. Now, what else you need to know about this organization is, what are they striving for? What are their strategic objectives? And this is very important for any organization to find out. What's important to them, right? What are they striving to do? Or striving to achieve. And this is specific, so strategic, or we call it nicely as a North Star or strategic objectives, or key things. Right now, just showing it's not even an objective yet, but these are the key critical strategic components that are important for this organization. And if you look at what they stated, that are customer experience, employee experience, market share, productivity, and regulatory compliance. What I really like about their North Star, it is driven by the external stakeholders' needs and expectations. Again, there is a framework of how you actually get to the truly, the purpose of the organization, and what would be the key measures for it. So again, another conversation, Adrian, if you invite me again, I'll be happy to explain on any of the topics. So go more, or again, take you to some of the sources for some of the very good information. Again, there's a lot of articles written about any of the topics I'm covering. But let's stay here. So customer experience, employee experience, market share, productivity, and regulatory compliance. What I'm looking for usually as well before we start any work on the performance improvement going forward, it is the weighting on each, or importance, level importance among this levers, right? For this organization, specifically after COVID, with the big talent leaving the organization, you can see that employee experience or employees or satisfaction is much more important than any other things that you see on this North Star. So even more important than the customer experience. And I think next year they're going to bump again the customer experience because their retention stayed somewhat stable right now. So they're changing the priority. But what is super important, and it's not only for the sake of, tell us what is more important. You're going to use that to prioritize investment into change. And that's going to tell you what initiatives and programs are going to be bumped higher on your change portfolio, what would be much more important to concentrate on, so you get a higher return on the investment. Okay. So again, going back to this organization, I've we know the weighting in here, what's more important, what's less important. We also know the vector, right? So what do you want to do? They want to improve the customer experience, improve employee experience, but compliance, we're just good to pass it, right? Like we need to stay in business, make sure that all of the regulatory bodies are happy with us. So they just wanted to sustain regulatory compliance. And they want to grow the market share, but you see the importance again is there, only 10%. And then improve productivity, faster, better, cheaper things, 20% importance on that as well. So again, if you have a multiple initiatives going, so they would be also assigned based on that priority. Now, let me get into now, another thing, so what we did need to know, it is how would be measured, right? So what is right now performing and is on track. So for example, like sustaining regulatory compliance and grow market share, whereas, the employee experience is just right now at par or it is in yellow and it's definitely in red and we're not reaching our goals to improve productivity. So how do you answer the question, how's your business? Well, this is how you get closer to that, right? So you know what is strategically important to your organization and you know where you are right now, but do you know, that's a question for you. If you don't know actually your current North Star and you don't know how they are weighting among them, it's like drop everything. Go and figure it out. Go find out what's important. And I'm sure you have tons of strategic documents that already explain it, but we have to be very careful again to pick those most critical and not means to the end as well, right? So it's not about the means. It's not let's be more digital. No, why? Why do you want to do that, right? So what is the purpose for it? So let me take you back or take you now to the key things that I wanted to cover. It is the top 5 tools you need for performance, for effective performance improvement. So for those of you that use the make, I kind of split it into the measure, analyze, improve, and sustain. And the first set of tools that I wanted to talk to you about is a business performance dashboard. And I know I'm concentrating quite a bit on measurements in here, but honestly, from all of my experience of work, the biggest difference that me and my team were able to do is when the project was very heavy on measurements. And believe me, I know how difficult it is to get it. Because of the sources of the information, of where the information is coming from, is it too detailed, is it not? It is a difficult task to do. However, if you go without it, there's not going to be a sense of value of the change that you actually that you achieve. So let me go here into the tool 1, so the business performance dashboard. So a couple of things in here to keep in mind. So KPIs dashboard. Oh, and so just a quick quote from Peter Drucker, who said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And even better one that I really like is, what gets measured gets managed. Very good quotes. So dashboard. KPIs dashboard really should be identified to tell us if we are on track, okay? Where KPIs identified for each process and supporting performance indicators so that it's really supporting it. So if I'm taking you back now from the North Star, and let's say the top one was improve customer experience. How do we know how well we're doing? Well, for this organization in particular, their key indicator was a Net Promoter Score. But we also know that it is affected, this Net Promoter Score, by the main KPIs that you see in the next column. For them, it is on-time delivery, case fill rate, customer timely onboarding, availability to sell, and a number of customer complaints. And you see in the brackets here also the target. Okay. What you also see in here is the kind of identification. Where are we right now? Are we at target? Are we still at par? Or it's really again red, yellow, and green. Now, when you look at this as well, it's what is important when you look at the dashboard, so you make sure that you have a balance, I don't mean a balanced scorecard, but a balanced types of the measures. And this is one of the frameworks that we propose for you to keep close attention to, that it cannot be always about productivity. This is my bottom right. So efficiency or productivity, where you measure the time and the cost, resources that are utilized in there, right? And waste and so on. One of the most important ones is effectiveness. Are we doing the right things for the customer? And it would be on any types of a level of the conversation that we're having. You take the value chains or value streams, so you go lower in every single process. Are we doing the right thing for their downstream process? Okay, not necessarily even for the customer, not for the end stakeholder, but within the process. So with that, you say, yes, I'm gonna, do it fast, cheap. However, is it right? Okay, so you're always balancing it out. And then you're also making sure that not only you're doing the right things, but you're also the quality of what you're doing is at par. It is a consistency. It is a responsiveness to requests and degree of any of the quality standards and compliance that you currently have in your organization. And then the fourth one that we often forget, especially in designs, what we want to measure the success of the processes or the capabilities is agility. Now I'm talking about a business agility. What I mean by that, how fast can we change if the change is, due to internal or external factors are happening and they happen constantly? How fast can we adjust? How fast can we get new product to market or new service to the market? Okay, what is the time and the cost for you to make those changes? If there's a regulatory requirement, how fast does it translate throughout the organization, especially to the process, and provide you with a new business rules that now you need to adjust your process, right? So agility. So please, as you look at your dashboards, take a look and make sure that you have the balanced KPIs in your dashboards. Okay, so with that, let's leave a little bit measurements by itself. Hopefully you understand the necessity of that. Let's go into analyze. So as you measured, or if you have a good understanding of the measurements, one of the key things you need to do is to understand what is all of the work that happens in your organization. The reason you need to know that, because you want to narrow it down to actual problem. Where is the problem? Because stating the problem well stated is half solved, as Charles Kettering said many, many years ago, and it's still very, very true. And you know that for the ones that are involved in a lot of projects, if you did not scope it right, if you did not do that in the very first stage of understanding and assessing the issue, then you might really gonna regret it later on that you did not include some of the very important components, or you something was misrepresented or for any other reason. So let's take a look how we can state the problem. And the way we're gonna state the problem first is to understand what is a business process architecture. This is the first tool that I want to bring your attention to. What is that? For those of you who haven't worked with a process architecture, it's really a structure, all of the work. It's a taxonomy of all of the things, landscape, a taxonomy of everything that is done within your organization. So to have a view of how the work is done. So it has to describe in the middle, usually this is the way how it is compiled. In the middle, it is your core process. It's the core of the business. So what is the work that directly impacts the customer and delivers the value to the customer? So for this organization, it starts all the way from developing the sales and operations plan, you plan production, make the product, fulfill the customer order, you deliver product, right? And some of the other ensuring that your product is developed properly and so on. This is everything that really touches the customer. These are the processes that are responsible of bringing more money, funds, money, value to your organization. Now, on the top is also things or processes, activities, actions, and it's all synonyms depending on which software you're using. But again, it's a process architecture. So for me, these are processes, guiding processes on top. So this is all of the work that guide the business, like develop strategic plans, enhance the brand. And of course, in the bottom, we have some enabling processes or processes that develop our recurring or reusable assets, reusable resources. So like employee relationships, or provide IT, provide people, provide improve business performance, provide financial services. It's everything just to make sure that you enabling again your business to run. So now you kind of know your landscape of your organization, all of the things that need to be done. What's next? Well, you want to know, once again, how does each of the process actually affects the strategic objectives that we discussed from the North Star. So when you go from this perspective, you really want to identify those processes in like almost one by one. So let's take an example for the first one, improving customer experience. So we know that fulfill customer order, customer relationships, sales is S&OP, so sales and operations planning, quality management system, process, if not executed properly, any of them, they will directly impact customer experience. Okay, similarly with the next line. So we know that enhancing employee relationship, but also developing people strategy, executing and enhancing health and safety management will directly impact your improving your employee experience and will hinder their business performance. So how do you measure each of them? How do you know? Okay, how do you know that some of them are green, some of them are yellow, and some of them are red? So you go here from really, it is very easy not to measure enough, or on the flip side with the big data, it's vice versa, just finding the trends to be overwhelmed with too much data and too little insight. So that's why we absolutely love this client example, because they just had just enough to manage and guide the business. They had a lot of hierarchy of the KPIs, and they definitely separated also some main KPIs from supporting KPIs. And there was actually another column that strictly provides you context of volume of the thing. So here's an example on fulfill customer order. So see, again, we're looking at the improved customer experience. Net Promoter Score is super important to us. Those are the 4 processes that we've discussed from the process architecture that affect that measurement. Now what we need to know, well, what would be the main KPIs? And for those processes, outcome-oriented measurements are on-time delivery and case fill rate. But it's also what's important for them is an inventory accuracy and pick up on time ratio as well. So that's why, and we know that those are in yellow overall, then this performance of the process is yellow. And I also know, and I can pinpoint who is the owner of those processes would be supply chain. So this is area of the business that I'm going to work on if the performance of the customer experience is lacking. So I'm going to take a look at all of the processes and again, all of the costs there. Similar for all of the other ones, so establishing and enhancing customer relationship, they would be measuring by the customer timely onboarding and the gross margin contribution. If they are in green, my process is in green, so that is definitely not the issue to overall change the performance of the customer experience. Okay. Similar for all of the other processes that would be important to take a look at. So that's about the dashboard. About the business process architecture and how you connect it to the measurements. The tool 3 or sets of tools in here, it's really change prioritization. So now we know red, yellow, and green. And if you take a look once again at the process architecture, now we kind of know which process is where, yellow, green, yellow, and red. You're like, well, where do I go from here? Do I improve everything that is red? And believe me, depending on the level of this taxonomy, there could be a lot of reds. And usually organizations don't have either, budget for everything or SMEs and the time to really improve everything. So here's where the tool of we call the pain and gain becomes very handy. There's a lot of other tools out there, but I think this is very visual and can be done quite fast in the setting of the workshop. If you have a data for it, great. If you don't, then it is really subjective. So how does it work? In a pain and gain, and I'll take you back to the North Star. If you remember that rating, you take a look, and this numbers on the right-hand side represent the process. So for example, 21 is a fulfilled customer order, okay? So how does it work now? Not only you're gonna look what is red, and everything in red is going to end up with the top right based on the pain priority as high as possible, right? So the low pain is going to be in here and the high pain is going to be in there. But first, even you look at the importance. It's importance or a contribution of each of the process that we just pre-built before to North Star. So here's an example. For the customer, or for fulfilling customer order, that would actually support and affect customer experience, productivity, compliance, all of those. If you don't do it properly, this is strategically very important process. So it's going to end up with the top right corner. And you go process by process like that, and just assessing it and then quickly building a chart, this becomes a very, very powerful tool for any of the management committee to take a look of the importance of improvement. So which of the processes should we contribute or spend now the time and effort to change and improve? From here, now it becomes a very good foundation to build the prioritization and a change portfolio. And that would look, again, based on, I think this one of the deliverables that was done was quite a few customers, and it was extremely well and accepted. What it is. So on the left-hand side, I have just the project numbers. I have the quarter when we're gonna look at it. I have the project lead. I have the process. So going back to the process number, you can put in the process name in here if it is easier. I have the department that is affecting, again, not to bombard with the change, the same department over and over again, or not to overlap. So you want to take a look at that. I have a process lead assigned to that and a process owner as well. And then on the right-hand side, what I have here, so this organization is quite mature, and it's a BPM in process improvements methodologies, quite disciplined in that. What I have in each column, it is really the phases of improvement projects. First, it starts with the understand the project and its steps. You understand, and you have the charter for change, you have the scoping understanding, you have the agreements to proceed and sign off from the executive or from the sponsors to proceed. The next one is analyze. So it is understanding you as is, understanding current issues that you have, doing the root cause analysis and so on and so forth, obtaining agreement to proceed. Then you move on to the future state design, all of the things that you do in the future state design. Then you're planning implementation, you're rolling it out, and then you're sustaining the change. So each of those processes that you saw before in the pain and gain analysis would end up in this portfolio, and you know that process by process, they're going to be tackled, and you visually can see and track where they are. Not only you can do it through this chart, which I think, again, it's been for years, that's been maintained in multiple organizations that we've done. And a lot of their colleagues are thanking them for being visual and transparent with their projects. You also can do with a timeline as well, and so on, like a Gantt chart. Not only you can do it here, but you also can do this prioritization that I mentioned to you before as a pain and gain on the lower levels of process. We do it always just to, again, prioritize where the improvement is mostly important to, or most critical to start. So similar is there. You put a star for, again, give the gold star to the most important and critical processes. So based on the importance, gold, silver, and bronze. And then you do the pain. So the pain is a red, yellow, and green. Again, what is the most important? What is the most painful, and versus what is the least painful? And you always want to concentrate on the gold star and on the most painful processes, and just tackle those first. Now, I'm going to take you now to the next set, and it's not just a tool, it's a few tools in here to analyze, redesign, develop action plan, and to close the gap. So depending, again, as I mentioned, on your maturity of your organization, how well you have your improvement framework, how solid it is. But there is this key components that I urge for you to develop the competence in doing, because it provides you with the foundation for a rigorous and detailed analysis and future state design. Number one, concept model, or you want to call it logical data model, depending on the on the camps that you're coming from. However, these are the relationships between the key concepts that you have in your organization. There are multiple, again, conferences and tools and articles of how to learn how to build the concept models. But this is by far, if I don't do this, if I don't understand this from the beginning of the project, I'm missing the connection. I'm missing the definition of the terms. So those terms that you saw in the first diagram, the moment you say, okay, how does my customer relate to the order? And can I have multiple orders per customer? Because some of the business rules are going to come from there. It all starts with a definition: who is the customer? You want it or not, but you have to agree if your customer, if a potential customer that is not in your system yet, is it already a customer? And the one that is, for example, temporarily not buying anything for a year and it's been locked, is it still a customer? Or do we need to, is it deleted or it's still archived? Is that a customer? There always are a lot of confusion about the terms that we have in the organization. So definition of terms is definitely, it's a beginning of wisdom. Without the dictionary of terms, we usually or quite often just, repeating, reworking things and running into frustrations later on. So concept model, the definition of terms. Next one, what we have for the tool for your analysis is really your business process models. You use BPMN, you use the information flow, use any other, techniques. By all means, I think honestly, again, based on all of the things and projects that we've done, business processes maps is something that you get the agreement on, obtain the alignment on how the work is done before you even start getting into redesign. You can do just enough as is without maybe getting into much detail, but this is definitely a start in understanding, again, as I mentioned, getting in alignment. Behind each of the process steps, and depending on the model, maybe if you're using any of the systems to support it, there's also, of course, properties behind, more of a description of every step. So it is not only fulfill order, you have the lower level of detail behind it. Who it is performed by, what is the system that is supporting it, what are the business rules that are there, any decision trees if you have would be all attached in here. As you recall, as I mentioned, the process is really connects all of the other domain, and that's exactly where it is stored, how it is connected, because then later in the design, when you want to look at it, what's not working well, that's where you actually line it all. More than that, of course, for those of you that use some of the Lean Six Sigma tools, we highly recommend, and it's still a very, very useful tool, is to do the root cause analysis, Ishikawa or fishbone diagrams, and together with the 5 whys. You can do it in different formats. There's mind maps that really can help you with it. But what are you trying to do is really to get to the root problem or root cause of that problem, so you can find a solution there. So these are just the tools of this process improvement frameworks. But again, without them, I would be lost. And as an engineer of the process of the future state and of the desired state, without these tools, I would be absolutely lost. I would not know how to appropriately address and fix the things, either fix the issues that we have and or come up with a new breakthrough ideas of how to get to the new state. Okay, so in other things, so once you know the gap, it's always, of course, again, another roadmap or portfolio of how to actually reach the future state through some type of, it's either, so as you see here, as a timeline, you can show it what is going to be fixed at what point of time, and you start planning your implementation. Okay. So I'm not sure where we are with time, but here, so I'm going to go into the improve and sustain now. So key tools in here, and here's a very good saying from Steve Jobs, who says, so to me, ideas are worth nothing unless executed, and execution is worth millions. So some of the tools in here, yes, I know we're going to have this portfolio of change, but what is very important for you to understand is that when we as we go with the future state design, it is super important for us to communicate everything that is happening. I'm going to show you this from a perspective of the process. So the moment we actually know what is the process, what is the current state, and what is going to be future state, do collect it, put it into your business transformation portal. So you know how far you are from achieving a certain goals, and that all of the information that you have collected is connected. This portal, again, as an example from this organization, where was important, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, and you need to provide that ability to navigate to the specific process measurements as easy as possible. So it's either come from the functions, so usually know in the marketing, sales, the supply chain. If not, then you need to provide the entry point from the org chart, because again, usually people know who they report to, so as long as they can find themselves there, or from a business architecture perspective. So it doesn't matter from each entry point you go to. Let me show you from example of the org chart that, oops, let me just take you actually right here in a second. If it is from the org chart and you're going from every individual, and this is actually an excellent example from this organization, if you want to take a look at job expectations that would have the core responsibilities, key accountabilities, and the purpose for this role, they would have their KPIs that relate strictly to this job role and the key processes this person should or is actually performing or is involved in. And all of them are hyperlinked. So in order for you to know how you're going to be evaluated at the end of the year, well, here are the KPIs that would be mapped back to the dashboard I showed you before. Here's the processes that I'm executing. And by the way, if they're affected by the change, that we would be aware of as well. So again, communication is back that, it is a continuous improvement of things, and people know how it's going to affect them personally. But going back to the portal, so if you have those job expectations on the top, you can hold those processes, you can navigate back into the process architecture, knowing where you fit in that end-to-end process, but also that you can go back and take a look how each of these processes is measured through the dashboard. And if you want to go further and find out more and get to the procedure of how you do your work or how you will be doing your work, then of course you're going to go, levels from process architecture to the process to the sub-process, and then back to the procedure and the job aid, right? So just make sure it is all in one place and it's easy to get there. It's definitely also a cultural component, being explicit and for the knowledge to be available at the time when you need it. I spoke, and I'll talk to you just in really quick about the cultural change. So, and I'm going back to what I showed you before, because the component of the culture is extremely important. And just to scratch the surface for you to understand it, I started about the performance, where you have the work structure and the people, and you put them together, it results in the action, and you're transforming your inputs into the outputs, right? So with your future state, and as you continue with your journey of the improvement and improving, you put the future state in place, and as a result, there will be deviations. There might be deviations, and you're going to take a look at some of the incident reports, or you're monitoring based on the KPIs. Are they changing? Are they not? Did it stick or not? You also observe some of the processes as well. And then multiple things can happen if this is, did not go at far where you wanted. So you would analyze those deviations. And two things usually happen from it. One, you need to go back and say, well, everything that you've designed, the change that you've designed does not make sense. So you would go back to the work structure, all right? You would update those descriptions and those designs. But what usually is forgotten is the right-hand side. It is the cultural issues that we need to fix. And that would work through the training and the coaching and consistent and emphasizing the reasons of those changes that would change the behavior and so on. And there's a lot of material on that, but please do not forget the cultural impact. You're not going to achieve, unfortunately, fortunately, not going to achieve that bullseye in that hexagon that I showed you before, unless your culture supports it. I cannot stress that enough again. So I'm kind of in the conclusion there. Thank you for some hearts. So what to do when you go back to the office? So a few key points in here for you to remember. So for the processes that you're tasked with to improve, number one, identify key performance indicators. It is your reflection, it is your mirror of the things that you're doing. So what really constitutes good performance, and identify any supportive metrics. That's number one. Again, if you don't have it, what's measured is managed. Do make sure you have a solid structure in there. Two, so review any existing scorecards and dashboards, and if they are built well, suggest changes. Please don't, remember, you have quite a bit of power because you collect all of the data that you have. So changes to the measurements and dashboards to match the key performance indicators. So make sure this, again, it is solid, and insist. Quite sometimes we need to insist on redesign and make it digital and available and visible and so on. Review the project portfolio. So based on what I described to you, quite often there are initiatives there that do not impact the strategic objectives. So you continue on with something that you already know and you feel sometimes in your gut. Yeah, we keep going just because we started, but sometimes some of the projects should not be continued, truly. And it's not because of you. It's not because you did a bad job. It's just because, again, it was not scoped properly, it was not analyzed, or also it would not impact strategic objectives change. Sometimes that happens as well. And yes, you should just cut your losses short. So that's this point about that. And then apply discussed process improvement framework. If you don't have anything in place right now, then depending on your maturity, there's a lot of material out there that can guide you through some of the standard or usual approaches, or it can be customized towards what you have. Have those tools that I explained to you. Majority of the organizations do it in Visio, Excels and PowerPoints. It's good tools as well. It doesn't have to be a specific tool where you execute it or store it. It's doable even without any specific, more than that. But the framework of improvement should be in place to help you out. It's going to be less frustration for your team too if you have a solid framework. Measure the impact of any implemented changes. Again, you have to show what have you done, the success of it. And once you know it, or you have to celebrate and communicate the success that you've achieved. It's super important. So people know what a great job you did. And also it's very self-fulfilling when you know that you've achieved, you made the difference, you made the change. Okay. So this is the end of my presentation. I'm going to go back to Adrian to tell me what questions I have there so I can hopefully answer them for you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Sasha. So much insight. I feel like we've had so much knowledge from you in the last hour. So we do have a few questions in the chat and in the Q&A, so we'll cover as many as we can. Sure. And apologies to anyone whose name I pronounce incorrectly. It's always hard to know exactly how to pronounce people's names when I haven't met them. So first of all, in the chat, it may be Jorge or George, depending on whereabouts in the world they're from, asks, the North Star, does that mean a few or only one?
Well, depends on your scope. So the North Star, there is a corporate or organizational, and it depends. You can have a North Star, almost a taxonomy of it, right? Like it's supposed to translate it all. So on a corporate level, there's usually one strategic set of objectives, and your executives have it. It can be from 3 to 5 years. The next strategic objectives are critical for the organization. And that's supposed to translate now into either functional, depending how you work functionally, or end-to-end processes or value chain and so on. But if it is traditional organizational structure, it should translate into the function. So every function. So for example, we're working with one very large insurance company in California just for operations. So you have a North Star just for operations. And then you just same things. It just your stakeholders now, not only external stakeholders that you touch, but it's also internal stakeholders as other functions. So you just look at their needs and expectations to inform your North Star and objective. But it definitely needs to contribute back up to your executive and overall North Star. Hope you answered your question, George.
I think that's great, and it's that hierarchy, isn't it? And it depends on the scope and the scale of what you're looking at. But Great. So then in the chat, Becky asks, and I think this was probably from about slide 20 of your presentation. For each business process architecture item, such as fulfill customer order, are there different levels of process maps to show how underneath this? And I think you sort of answered that in the presentation, and the answer being yes.
Yes, the answer is yes, absolutely. The high level is just only it's easier to connect your KPIs and measurements. So again, as Adrian is saying, it is a hierarchy, right? But there are multiple levels underneath. Always people are asking me, how many levels should you go down? There is no golden answer. The only thing I tell you that the more critical the process, lower in the process hierarchy you go. But also keep in mind, the more you define processes, more you have to maintain. So the ones that you actually in scope of your process, of your project, sorry, you're going to go into more detail and you maintain that knowledge and hopefully you sustain and update it. But the ones that are less critical, maybe just keep it on a higher level, level 1, level 2, and just keep it there. But again, if it's critical for your organization, they have to go. I've worked in the oil and sands industry for quite a bit. You go there to the definition of where it really compliance or injuries might be in fact, and that goes like literally step by step, not just really process step, but process step.
Yeah. So but depending on the implications and the severity if things go wrong.
Very good one.
Great. So, and then Brianne asks, as far as a documentation portal to house all that was shown, have you found organizations usually build their own, or do you know some good systems that organizations can use for this? And I think this is a fantastic question because let's face it, so often I once heard the term, rather than knowledge repositories, like knowledge coffins where knowledge goes to die. And it's like, if you've got all these models or even diagrams, even if they're not models, if no one looks at them and maintains them, they're not being, they're not creating their value. So what kind of systems are you aware of?
Brianna, you're not alone, right? So this is very much also depends on the maturity of your organization. So as Adrian is saying, if you're going process by process, like one by little one, and you done it, you own it, and only you know about it, unfortunately, right? I've seen and I'm happy to talk to you about maturity stages basically, but in this level of ad hoc, similar to CMMI level of maturity, 1 and 2, it's like it's quite all right to just keep it to yourself because you're going from project to project. The moment you feel you reach this threshold or critical mass of now you have a lot of good information in there, you need to start aligning and maintaining the interfaces between them, what affects it, and so on. You start feeling that you need something more than just the Visio and Excel and the PowerPoint. Believe me, some of the organizations reach the higher stages, but it's more difficult to do it without the tool. And there are multiple tools out there. I hope you could come to some of the conferences that Adrian mentioned, building business capabilities, IRM conferences in London every single year and so on, where the tool providers come to those conferences to show you what their tools can do. And honestly, right now, I'm amazed. I just got another conversation today here in Copenhagen about AI and what AI could do for us going forward. How can manage our internal knowledge and help us as process engineers and the future state engineers use that knowledge and almost like talk to us of how we can improve much faster. Currently, the projects take 3 to 6 months, sometimes for one, truly improvement. I'm hoping we can really get it much faster, much shorter, so that we can bring a better value.
That would be amazing.
I know, I'm very excited.
And I would absolutely echo what you say there, Sasha, about the conferences like the Building Business Capability Conference in the USA, or the IRM UK Business Analysis Conference Europe in London, or there's great BA conferences in Brussels like BA and Beyond, and many others around, and BA Day in Germany. So so do check.
Come meet us in person, and please do say hello. So we'll be happy to see you all guys there.
So we got time for one more question. Really, really quick answer to a really big question. But Harshita asks, how do lean principles factor into business process improvement when you look at specific strategic targets? How do you know if you've over-optimized a process? That's a good question.
It is, yeah, it is not a quick one there, but definitely like system, so think things system wise, right? You cannot de-optimize one piece, we optimize one piece without taking consideration the whole, what you're impacting upstream and downstream, because you can definitely collide it all. Lots of the, and Adrian probably can pull you into a lot of how lean principles can help out with that. I just showed you just a small piece. We use Lean Six Sigma tools quite a bit in a lot of projects, depending. Please make sure just you're using the right tool at the right time for the right objective. It's very easy to overthink and or show too much to the people who say, please don't show this to me. This is overwhelming. No,
Absolutely.
use those tools yourself. Bring the information to them to say, we need the decision on X, Y, Z. And or here's what we see. This is a risk. Please make a decision. So just
Yeah.
be careful from that perspective. Hopefully, Hashim, I answered your question, but if not, please do reach out as well to me and Adrian.
Yeah, it's a difficult question for sure. So, excellent.
Right.
Well, Sasha, thank you so much. And if we haven't got to your question, I apologise, but time, as always, is against us with these webinars. So, Sasha, I'm sure people watching this webinar will want to know more about what you do. They'll want to stay in touch. How's the best way for people to stay in touch with you?
LinkedIn is the best one. Not always, not all the time I'm on it, but please do connect. So that thank you for sending the link, Adrian. So yes, I'll be happy to hear from you. And hopefully I'll see you at the conferences. I'm always at BBC and IRM conference for sure. Other than that, somewhere around the world helping, making the difference for some of the customers I have.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Sasha, thank you so much for a fantastic, insightful presentation that I'm sure many of us have got a huge amount from. As I do stay, if you're there live, if you're attending live, stay on the line for just about 2 more minutes. I've got a few closing announcements. Firstly, do remember, if you have colleagues who weren't able to be here live, the recording will be available within about 24 to 48 hours. So if you know someone who will benefit from that, why not send them the link? It's a really great way of networking as well, staying in touch with perhaps a colleague that you've not spoken to for a while. Please do connect with Sasha. I always think it's a great virtual round of applause when you've given a presentation. There are a bunch of LinkedIn contact requests. So, much as if we were in person, you'd be giving a round of applause. Do connect with Sasha. And you can connect with me as well if you've enjoyed the webinar. Just a few things to mention in case you're not aware. So let me just share my screen. Most of you are probably aware of BA Digest magazine. So you should be seeing now on my screen BA Digest. This is a completely free quarterly PDF magazine that focuses on all things related to business analysis. It's something we started as a bit of an experiment, and it's grown and grown. You don't even have to register to view it, but you can sign up and have it in your inbox. And because it is community driven, like anyone can submit an idea for an article. And, so if you want to write an article, that's, it's a community driven publication. So I'm just going to put a link to the Q4 edition in the chat, except Zoom is not. Everything's disappeared from my screen. I'll in the email that follows up from the session, you'll get a link to the BA Digest, the Q4 BA Digest. Also, there's another webinar coming in January. So for those of you that opted in to receive emails, I'll send you an email link with a link to BA Digest and the next webinar in January, because I've managed to close all sorts of applications down. It's been a long day, longer for you, Sasha, because it's an hour later where you are. So
That's right.
So thank you everyone for attending, wherever you are in the world. Thank you, Sasha. Look forward to seeing everyone somewhere soon. So take care. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Bye. Good luck, everybody.